Today we're going to make a pie that my father-in-law said was better than his own mother's. It's chocolate bourbon pecan pie. We're going to start out with a medium-sized saucepan and half a cup of butter. We're going to just go ahead and put it in here. The reason why we're cooking our filling is if you've ever had a runny pecan pie or you've burnt your pecans on your pie because it took too long to set up, the filling doesn't always have enough time to cook in the oven without getting kind of gross. So we've got a half a stick of butter, a cup of brown sugar, a cup of agave nectar. You could use corn syrup if you want. I just have always used agave nectar in this recipe, so that's what we stick with. Then we've got 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder and a half a teaspoon of salt. We're going to put that in there, and then we're going to cook this all together, and then we'll be right back. All right, so that took about 10 minutes for this to come to a boil on the stove. One of the reasons why we use cocoa powder in here instead of chocolate chips is because the original recipe that called for chocolate chips just left a gloppy mess of chocolate at the bottom. Also, the other thing is by using cocoa powder instead of chocolate chips, it kind of cuts the sweetness, because that's what most people complain about with pecan pie, is that it's too sweet. So I've got a cup and a half of pecans now that we're going to mix into our sugar mixture here. We're just going to give it a stir. We're going to let this cool for 15 minutes, and then we're going to get our pie crust ready while this cools. Okay, so I made this pie crust in another video that we're going to link in my profile, or link at the top of my page. And this pie crust, I've had it chilling in the fridge for the last couple hours, so it's going to have to come to a little more room temperature, but we don't want it totally room temperature. It's got to just get soft enough that it's pliable. So 15 minutes should be perfect while we cool our pecan and chocolate mixture. Okay, now that our pecan and sugar mixture has cooled, we're going to take 3 eggs in a large bowl, and we're going to give them a quick whip. We're going to add our 3 tablespoons of bourbon and our teaspoon of vanilla. All right, now that we got that all mixed up here, we're going to set that aside real quick while we get our pie crust in the pie container. See, it's nice and pliable now that it's been sitting out for about 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and gently peel it off the paper. Okay, now that we've got our pie crust in, we're going to set this aside. We're going to take our eggs and bourbon mixture, and we're going to add in our pecan and sugar mixture. And we're going to just stir that up. After we get it all stirred up and poured in the pie crust, we're going to put it in an oven that's been preheated to 425 degrees. We're going to cook it for 10 minutes. Then I'm going to turn the oven down to 325 and cook it an additional 45 minutes. Got this mixed together. All right. I almost forgot to mention, after we get all this goodness poured in here, we're going to top it with another 1.5 cups of pecan halves. You can either just dump them on top if you want, or dump them into the filling if you don't really care. If you want to be fancy, like I do, what you're going to do is you're going to take those pecan halves, and we're going to make a design on the top of the pie. Okay, so after your pie is finished baking, take it out of the oven, let it cool for about 45 minutes. You'll see that there's no jiggle. Try this recipe and see if you can start a fight in your own family about who makes the best pecan pie.